My name is Bianca Obinyan, and I'm a third-year medical and master in public health candidate at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, and I also serve as the Policy Task Force Coordinator for The Future Is Us.
And I'm Shanice Blair, Communities of Care Co-Coordinator for The Future Is Us with my master's in clinical mental health counseling.
And today we'll be discussing dismantling the school to prison pipeline in Galveston Independent School District. We do not have any financial disclosures. So for our objectives of this presentation, we want to give everyone a background of the school to prison pipeline. We also wanted to discuss our community-based initiative, The Future Is Us, and ways that we have addressed this issue through community engagement and our intervention methods. We also want to place a strong emphasis on youth advocacy. So the school to prison pipeline in the United States is a trend wherein children in the education system are pushed out of their regular education environment and into the juvenile criminal systems. Nationally, Black students are more than 3 times likely to be suspended or expelled as their white peers. And we know that receiving a single suspension from the school serves as a key turning point toward increased odds of incarceration. So to highlight the scope of the problem in Galveston Independent School District, we wanted to compare the student population with students who received 1 or more disciplinary exclusions in the 2019-2020 school year. So in the 2019-2020 school year, Hispanic students made up 48% of the student populations. Black students comprised of 25% of the student population, white students comprised of 24%, and Asian, Native American, and multiracial students comprised of 3%. However, of the 1,063 GIC students who received 1 or more disciplinary exclusions from their classroom that year, 43% of them were Black, 39% were Hispanic, and 18% were white. So overall, Black students were 2.4 times more likely than their white peers and 2 times more likely than their Hispanic peers to have received 1 or more disciplinary exclusions from the classroom. And when we further evaluated the disciplinary data, of the 429 infractions that resulted in out-of-school suspension, disciplinary alternative education program, or juvenile justice alternative education program, only 38 qualified for mandatory removal per the Texas Education Code. So this just emphasizes the excessive disciplinary measures being used in the school district and how that disproportionately impacts our Black students.
The Future Is Us is a community-based initiative that seeks to address the disproportionate suspensions, expulsions, DAEP referrals, and youth incarceration rates among youth of color in Galveston by identifying community factors and social determinants of health that affect this issue. We are a Communities of Care grantee from the Hogg Foundation for Mental Health. The grant's focus is to strengthen community efforts to transform the environments where people live, learn, play, and pray, while supporting the resilience, mental health, and well-being of the children and youth of color and their families in our community. The Future Is Us is led and facilitated by a Youth and Parent Advisory Council, design team, and policy task force. The Youth and Parent Advisory Council is composed of community youth and parents involved in Galveston Independent School District, providing insight and input on how the project is driven. The design team includes members from multiple Galveston organizations representing various sectors of social determinants of health. The policy task force evaluates district and community policies and practices that influence and contribute to disproportionate disciplinary practices in Galveston Independent School District. As The Future Is Us is a community-led initiative, gaining the Galveston community's perspective on the district's disproportionate removal of Black students was needed in directing the initiative's focus. Through the use of the Thrive, Tool for Health Resilience in Vulnerable Environments framework, local and national data was collected along with analysis of poems written by students enrolled in juvenile justice in Galveston Public Schools. This information was then presented to the community through open house meetings and difficult conversation. At the end of the series, the community identified their top priorities of factors that influence the racial inequities in the school district: education, high quality, accessible education and literacy for all ages that effectively serves all learners; social networks and trust, trusting relationships among community members; and norms and culture, broadly accepted behaviors and culture that people generally conform to. Community engagement and assessment is an ongoing process in understanding the community's needs and finding solutions through community voice.
So we spoke to students and parents in the community, reviewed GIC policy, evaluated the GIC disciplinary data, and reviewed the literature before creating a policy brief. This has been one of our main modes of intervention. In the brief, we discussed what the literature shows, which is disciplinary actions taken against minor infractions do not deter defiant behavior. They actually increase adolescent misconduct. And as a result, Black students are more likely to experience injustice, which can lead to mistrust and disengagement from the institution of education and underperformance in academic settings. The recommendations we included in our policy brief were to, first, ban willful defiance suspensions. Willful defiance can be described as disruptive behavior, noncompliance, and subordination. These are all subjective. A common example we use when presenting around the district is talking back. Some can see talking back as defending yourself or standing up for yourself. Others can see it as being rude. Again, in Galveston Independent School District, Black students are disproportionately impacted by these subjective infractions, and banning willful defiance has been shown to significantly reduce the amount of suspensions students receive. Another one of our policy recommendations were to place greater emphasis on restorative practices. Restorative practices are designed to address the root cause of behavioral issues by focusing on building and nurturing relationships. Districts that have implemented restorative practices as alternatives to suspensions have demonstrated a decrease in overall out-of-school suspension rates and narrowed the racial disparity gap between Black students and their peers. And finally, we also recommended establishing a diverse committee of community members and school administrators to annually evaluate disciplinary data. This committee can help identify disparities and allow administrators to work towards solutions for better outcomes of the students. And something that we also included on our policy brief is our student voice. So as Shanice mentioned, we had a lot of community engagement activities, and one of them being movie nights, where we discussed students' experiences in the classroom. And these are some of the quotes that students told us that we included in our policy brief. First one being, the teacher told me that maybe my parents should have raised me better. And when I talked back to her, she called security to get me out of the class. Every day after that, I felt targeted because I was always the only one to get in trouble in that class. Another quote was, people think that just because we're Black, that we're not innocent or we're unintelligent. So we want to include these youth voices in there. So as we're presenting around the district, administrators and school board members can really see how our youth are feeling.
The youth in our community are the experts in driving voice of the future is us. As the experts, their voice is needed in making change that is realistic and fits the needs of students based on the experiences of students. The youth of the future is us have engaged in and continue to work towards self-actualization and educational justice advocacy. This year, a major accomplishment of the future is us was the capacity building and leadership changes that we implemented and needed in the hiring of youth and parent lead advocates. Since being hired, the leads have become ingrained and active in the efforts of the future is us, speaking at Galveston Independent School District board meetings, attending community meetings, leading their own meetings, organizing community outreach events, developing the website, and other needs to support community change. This year, we had a youth retreat where the youth developed the job duties of the lead advocates and discussed ideas and solutions they hope to bring to the community. Due to his advocacy efforts, the Future is Us lead advocate, Toby, pictured at the pulpit, was nominated and appointed to a leadership position on the City of Galveston's Families, Children, and Youth Board.
Another one of the major accomplishments from our youth lead advocates, Toby, and another one of our youth lead advocates, Tonisha, is that they joined me in presenting our policy brief and our disciplinary data at the University of Texas Medical Branch Diversity and Inclusion Symposium, and we were proud to win first place for best presentation at the conference. And the youth have also presented at Hogg Foundation for Mental Health Young Mind Matter Conference. And so Shanice and I are just very proud of our youth, and we love to see their growth and how they're using their voice to advocate for change in the community. And this is just another example of something that our youth have done. They created this social media campaign called Save Our Black Youth, where they created slides showing some of the data that we presented today. And they're sharing this amongst their peers to recruit more of them to come and join the Future Is Us, and also with administrators so we can build that relationship between the Future Is Us and the school admin. So on behalf of the Future Is Us, we'd like to thank everyone for coming to our presentation. We hope to see you at the conference, and we'll be ready to answer any questions that you may have. Here's our contact information. You can see our website here as well. And also you can follow us on Twitter for more updates. Thank you.